And on today's episode, we have the brilliant Dr. Christine Cocchiola. Dr. C is a licensed social worker. She is a professor. She is a protective mom herself and survivor, and specializes in coercive control education. On top of that, she has written a children's book. She has written her own book. She has done a TED Talk, and she spends so much time supporting women that are facing coercive control and abusive partners in relationships and post-separation. So welcome, Christine.
Well, welcome, Dr. C, to Dirty Laundry. Thank you for.
Hang on, here she comes.
Oh, we
Yay.
have a little kitty
Who is
cat.
she?
And your kitty.
Ooh,
A black cat.
The
What's her name?
luckiest.
She's 20. She's 20
She's-
on May 31st. She's their big birthday.
Happy
Big birthday party for
20th
her.
birthday.
I had a black cat who lived to 21.
Is it because they're like
There we go.
they're like
I'm
spellbound?
Yeah, because they're so mythical and magical
But
and
they-
lucky and
And
special. I love a black cat.
Oh, I love it. You can't be superstitious though, because then you would be walking in circles all day.
Do you keep her in on Halloween? Yeah.
I keep her in all the time.
Oh, she's an
baby.
indoor.
She's an indoor baby.
Yeah.
And she has a little white patch on her forehead and on one part of her belly. So
Oh, so she's like, she
she doesn't have
the superstition is broken.
Yes.
Oh
I'm
my
sorry to
God.
distract though.
No, listen, we
So-
just love
We just love talking about
anything, really.
yeah.
Animals especially.
Okay.
So, Christine, how did you get into this work? I mean, not everyone's like, yay, I'm an 8-year-old girl and I can't wait to help people get out of abusive relationships. Like, how did you find yourself here?
Well, I was 11.
Oh, okay, say more.
Okay, 11.
Yeah, no, I have a TEDx, I talk about it. My mom was abused as a child. And when I found out, I remember thinking, how could such a horrible problem even exist in this world? And I think the social justice advocate in me my mom says I always was a little firecracker, but man, it got burning around then. And at 19, I became a domestic abuse, sexual assault crisis counselor for a local umbrella agency where I volunteered for over 35 years. And at the time was dating my lovely partner who ended up being my abuser.
Not so lovely.
So I was married to him for 27 years and 11 months. I knew him 35. I started dating him when I was 16. And had no idea I was suffering abuse because I, like so many people, was taught to look at abuse through the violent incident model.
Yeah.
Right.
And then realized, oh, wait, something like finally around year 20 of marriage, I'm like, what the hell is going on?
Huh.
And I began doing some research. I, of course, found Dr. Ramani Deversala, and who I'm so blessed now as a dear friend also and a colleague. But found her work and a couple of other people's work, and as a therapist. So I'm also a therapist. So I began like saying, what the heck, what's wrong? Like, what's wrong? I always this idea of what's wrong with me, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what happens in these relationship dynamics. What's wrong with me? And there had been one physical incident early in our marriage, but then never another one. And that's the thing that people keep, I think, getting wrong is coercive control can be physically violent. It usually can become physically violent. But that abusers are often using other tactics first. And when they can't control you in other ways, they will move on to physical violence and certainly legal abuse. And certainly, of course, post-separation abuse is coercive control post-separation. Like people like say, oh, it's separate. No, it is coercion and control. It's about power over. And the sad part in my particular niche is that, the children are constantly being weaponized in some way. And I was fortunate to work under Dr. Evan Stark, who is truly the godfather of coercive control. He supported me through my doctoral work. And when I started researching psychological abuse, I'm like, wait a minute, this is more than psychological abuse. I've been abused in the court. I've been abused financially. My children have been weaponized. It's coercive control is the underpinning of it all.
Yeah.
We have to start looking at abuse through the coercive control lens, and that it can feel good in the beginning. In the UK, love bombing is part of their criminalization of coercive control.
That's incredible.
So
That's incredible.
really,
Yeah.
really incredible. So, so that's, my life story is a story of someone who experienced abuse very early on, but didn't know it was abuse, right?
And so interesting,
And,
would you say that because of what you witnessed with your mom, your idea of abuse was completely skewed?
No, so my mom suffered sexual abuse,
Okay.
and so that became my passion, is how to
Right.
end child sexual
I see.
abuse.
Right.
But I would say that what did get skewed is growing up in a pretty imperfectly beautiful family where my mom and dad my mom passed away in December, excuse me.
I'm sorry.
They were married 64 years and their
Oh.
relationship was completely loving
Wow.
and unconditional.
Mm.
And so I thought that that's what love, like that. I had this like idealization of love instead of an understanding that these are red flags.
Yeah.
And so I knew all the green flags, but I
Yeah.
didn't necessarily
Oh,
know the red
interesting.
flags. And we need to really educate young people on what this looks like,
Yeah. It's interesting
so
that you say
interesting.
coercive control is this sort of like underpinning of abuse, because it's almost like we need to flip the model and look at it upside down, right? I've seen recently this like iceberg model where it's like the tip of the iceberg, right? Of what we see.
Is the violent incident
Is the
sometimes,
violence or the financial abuse or
something that's-
sexual abuse.
right, more tangible almost. It's like you can see it,
Yeah.
you can feel it almost, but it's the years of the little pieces of control.
Yeah. The grooming almost.
It is grooming. Yeah. That you experience it yourself for decades without even realizing really what it was.
Right, because abusers are grooming the
Yeah.
entire time. And so I say not all coercive controllers are child sexual predators, but
right.
all child sexual predators
Right.
are using the same exact grooming tactics as coercive controllers. It's just that child sexual predators then bring it into the sexual realm, right? So it is about targeting a victim. That's why my podcast is called Perfect Prey, because they choose people who tend to work hard at relationships, who really care about relationships. If the world were made of, and nobody's perfect, but if the world were made of people who were committed to working hard at relationships and tried hard to make things work, then the world would be a really fantastic place, wouldn't it? But the reality is there's people who capitalize on that.
Right.
And victims and survivors rate very high in agreeableness. And so you take someone who maybe goes into a relationship where they don't know it's a cage, but they're entering into a cage. And over time, the cage just gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And that is the eroding away of someone's autonomy, their agency, their ability to have voice. Maybe like I have and had a very successful career. I'm a college professor full time. I've had this career. I was a therapist. I had people who loved me outside of the home, but the moment I would enter into the home, it was eggshells. And so you can have great self-confidence and you can be someone who has agency in so many aspects of your life. But when you return to the cage, the abuser over time is going to make the cage smaller. And you don't, Dr. Sark used to say it's an unknowing of what we know, because you don't even know it's happening. It's so slow. And it doesn't have to be years, to your point, Amanda. It can be years, but the other piece to this is it can happen really quickly too. It depends on how astute your abuser is, how capable they are, and how easily you are to get to comply. And it's never a victim's fault, but we often are ready to comply. We don't want someone to feel we're rejecting them. It's not about us. So a lot of people conflate, codependency with this. I wasn't a codependent person. I was actually very well adjusted in all aspects of my life, but I wanted a relationship that worked. And then when you have children, well, of course, the stakes just entirely shift.
We talk a lot about this playbook. A lot of experts that we've interviewed, just from our own work, we've noticed it. Is this intentional, or are these abusers just continuously doing what seems to work? Like,
are they aware of it?
Yes, exactly.
Is this premeditated? Is this something that they and they're planning? Okay, and then next week I'm going to take away her credit cards, and then the week after that I'm going to stop her from going on a girls' trip, and then the week after, is it premeditated, or is this just
insidious and subconscious?
So that I co-authored the book Framed, Women in the Family Court Underworld. And at the bottom, we put the abuser's playbook, right? And so I think that one of the things we know as therapists and people working in the clinical realm is that these are behaviors that align very well with what we might call the dark tetrad. And so these are people who have narcissistic traits.
Right.
But that's like a lot of people call them narcissists.
Right.
So it's not actually accurate because they also have Machiavellian traits, which is highly manipulative.
Yeah.
They also are willing to break the law or have been breaking the law, and the courts don't recognize it or acknowledge it. These are people who are stalking, have your phone tracked, have your car tracked, yet nobody's saying they're a stalker, even though stalking is illegal in all 50 states in the United States, and maybe you have listeners obviously from other places.
Yeah.
But the reality is that stalking, when it's someone you know, is treated differently, right? When it's an intimate relationship.
Yeah.
And then the last part is sadistic. And so there's malevolent intent to harm. It's willful, it's active, and it's intentional. But to your point, do they say, oh, next week I'm going to do this? No, I think what we know is that it's a maladaptive coping mechanism for them. How do I cope in a world where I'm losing control?
Yeah.
Oh, I know. Maybe if I track her, I'll have more control. So it's a subconscious need or desire to feel in control.
Right.
Why? Well, I don't mean to be simplistic, but I mean, we know these people are born with certain traits, right? And that these traits are fortified through, and it's the premise of my work, is what happens to the children. Because when you think about a child who grows up in a family system where they don't get to be their authentic selves, they aren't able to regulate themselves because they have to perform for their parents or perform for a parent. What that child learns very early on is that I'm not valuable.
Yeah.
If I was valuable, I could be myself. If I had a secure attachment to someone, I could let go. I can't let go. And so this abuser probably grew up in a home where they were shamed.
Yeah. Shame is big.
And in that shame, the coping mechanism to control their environment in some way, and unfortunately, what I say is like, people are like, he wasn't like this before, he got worse. Well, the personality traits were there, but over time, the coping mechanism got stronger and stronger and stronger. And so when a child doesn't feel safe as a child, and as they go into adolescence and they still don't feel safe, they learn to cope in this way and they get savvy at it. They get really good at it, where nobody assumes that they would be an abuser.
Right.
It is so interesting. And it just seems like and so often it becomes the perfect marriage of a person like you just referred to, and then the other person who is the, working on the relationship, maybe a people pleaser. Like, how do they always find each other? It just seems like it's always the case where it's like the person with narcissistic tendencies and a childhood where they couldn't be themselves and were, repressed as a child, finds that other person who is like the empath. How does that always happen?
Well, because they wouldn't search someone else.
Yeah.
This is the only type of person that will accept them?
They need that personality in order to like execute on their vision.
It's just like we see this over and over and over and over again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So one of the things we've heard a lot about, and you just kind of touched on it, is how narcissism, let's say as a personality trait, we're not diagnosticians, I don't want to label, but that type of personality trait, typically that's coming out of some sort of childhood trauma. But what I'm hearing from you is maybe more about childhood attachment than like an actual incident that shifted, sort of their, not personality, but ethos, motives, whatever, insert.
Or maybe their personality.
Or maybe I'm totally off. Why don't you talk?
Well, we know that people are born with the traits.
Yeah. Right.
So the question becomes, it's like you're born with maybe, maybe there's some traits, there's predisposition to having ADHD. Right. Some of the research says that, right? Okay. And so there's predisposition to it, but then things happen in your environment that actually make that predisposition more relevant.
I see.
Right. So if you take, we have a Harvard study, it's about 80 years old, that like talks about a fulcrum on a seesaw. So the seesaw is like this. So you're born maybe with these traits. You're born, let's just say, a little more ego compromised. You're not hardy in the world, right? Because you could take two kiddos born more ego compromised, and one ends up being perfectly healthy and have no relationship problems. Why? Because perhaps their ability to adapt to the environment, right, was better.
Right.
Okay. Why is it that some children grow up in abusive homes and are never abusers?
Yeah.
Right.
You know, we used to think historically, which is so wrong and incorrect, that if a child was sexually abused, they were going to be a perpetrator.
Right.
Totally not true.
Right.
We know that, right?
Yeah.
So what is it? It's personality traits or parts of us that were born, epigenetics, intergenerational trauma, for sure. We know that the body keeps score, right?
Yeah.
And certainly DNA.
Yeah.
And so you have these markers, and then you're born into a family system where your mother like literally tells you she wishes she never had you.
Oof. Ouch.
Where you never are able to relax because your mom and dad are fighting all the time. And your dad actually, the only way he loves you is if you perform for him, like you're good at sports or you play that trumpet really well. And maybe he's fun and exciting too. You know, they don't have to be authoritarian overtly, but they are all, everybody in the family system knows who has the power. They are omnipresent and they are authoritarian, whether they're fun or not. And this is part of what happens with moms is they're like, well, he's fun and my child loves him. Well, yeah, because your child knows they have to perform to get the fun dad to like them, right? Or the mean dad, the child's overtly they're all afraid of these parents, but overtly fearful of. And the child knows they have to acquiesce. And this is the kids, they'll align with this abusive parent because that feels safest, right? So you take that parent and that dynamic, and now that parent, because they're so damn sadistic, wants to, and again, they're too dumb to know they're doing this, but they want to fracture the attachment with the safe parent.
Right.
Because of this envy, this need to control, this need to retaliate. So now we have a child untethered. There's no anchor because I can't trust or feel safe with that person. I know that, but I'll act like I can, maybe. And then I can't actually trust this person anymore because I've been told that person loves my brother more than me, or wishes that I was smarter in school, or is too tired all the time, or is off their meds. And that's why they yelled at me last week for the 5th time when I didn't put away my shoes. So you see, we have children growing up in family systems that aren't safe. And I truly believe the crux of, and I've worked in public schools. I mean, I've been doing for over 4 decades, almost 4 decades doing this work. I truly believe the crux of the problems we are seeing in schools, in behavioral issues, is children who don't have someone to anchor to.
Yeah.
They don't have a safe parent. And even if that parent is safe, they're being told that parent isn't safe. And then now let's add in the social media and the technology addiction and the porn addiction and all of the other things that are, all of the things that are creating. This is a solvable problem if children just were able to feel safe.
The attachment's big. I never, in my mind, I never put together the undermining of this sort of safe parents attachment as part of the control,
which we see in a lot of post-separation conflict, right? And the family court system enables it, right? So rather than trying to correct it, goes along with it. And so these children are then left, like you said, untethered, where they're forced to spend time maybe with an abusive parent who is undermining the other parent, the safe parent. They're not allowed to spend time or as much time with the safe parent. So where does that leave these children? And then what does that mean for their future? For these kids who are growing up in these dysfunctional family systems that are rife with conflict and, family conflict and court proceedings and all of that, where does it leave these kids?
That's right. That's right. So, and I think what you're highlighting too is we have this idea in our head, which is a wonderful idea. The children's voices need to be heard. But what if I can't actually speak my true voice? right? So as a therapist, we have children, who are, the protective parent, the safe parent wants the child to go to therapy with them because the child is indoctrinated against them. And what's that child forced to do in therapy? They're forced to say, I hate you, protective parent. I don't like you. And so what is that building up? Shame. Yeah. What is the one thing that causes, like if you have the propensity for these traits, the one thing that will cause me to be more like and identify with an aggressor is when shame continues to get activated in me.
Yeah.
And so how do we reduce shame? So I'm having conversations with protective parents all day long saying, don't go to therapy with your child.
Really? Wow.
You're forcing your child to say more bad things about you, and you're forcing the abuser to tighten their grip. Sometimes, unfortunately, letting go a little bit alleviates the trauma that's actively occurring to the child.
Interesting.
And so, the really good news is I meet constantly with protective parents and their children who have had clarity. And they come back and they realize what happened. And those are such the wonderful stories and amazing.
But that can take years, right? That's when children, mature into young adults, and then they start to reflect on their childhood and see who the safe parent was and who wasn't. But
that's right.
It happens later on. After the fact.
It's so interesting because we know that like couples therapy, if you're in any type of abusive relationship, is a major no-no. But I don't think that we've extended that down to the children. So that's very fascinating and incredibly important. And yet then what are protective parents meant to do? Because, we talk a lot about amplifying the children's voices. How do we autonomize these children to be able to pick who they want to live with or what parent, is the safe one. And yet, so what modality can they use? So if it's not therapy, the courts really don't want to hear from them.
What's the solution?
How? Yes. Tell us, Dr.
So remember, again, as you're saying, right? This is the problem.
Yeah.
Is that children are gonna lie about what they really want out of safety.
Of course.
And frankly, they may actually believe it now at this point. It's like a cult.
Yeah.
Right.
I'm doing a webinar in a couple of weeks on like the cult in the home because this abuser has coerced them so much that they may actually, in fact, beyond acquiesce, now align.
Yep.
Now actually truly be indoctrinated. Yep. And so you're trying to deprogram a child from a cult. How are you going to deprogram them? Yeah. And so when a protective parent's like, go to therapy with me, let's go to therapy. You're trying to deprogram someone who's been in a cult. You can't deprogram someone who's been in a cult. That's coercion. It's coercion to try to deprogram how somebody thinks or believes.
Oy.
So then,
yes. Wow. And so what's the answer?
What's the answer?
Right? Yeah.
Yeah. So
for me,
they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. It's basically our system.
Yeah.
It's like hope for the best.
So what we need is, so I'm training therapists and attorneys and guardian ad litems. I have a 12-hour program where I teach people about this. But the bottom line is this. We have to stop having people come into therapeutic settings or guardian ad litem settings or custody evaluation settings, and everybody is automatically perceived on an equal playing field, whether it's high conflict or not. As you know, I say high conflict is a misnomer. As soon as someone calls it high conflict, it's abuse.
Yep.
Okay. So how do we actually find out the foundation of the parental subsystem? Stick with me. There's two people who have been in a relationship dynamic for an extended period of time. They have children together. Yeah. What was their relationship like from the beginning? There was one person. Let's find out if there was one person who had more power and control all along. Because that person is probably the person who is coming off as a charlatan, fooling the court. Yeah. Able to perform and is part of probably, I don't want to be exact, people call me dramatic. All of my clients are dealing with the dark tetrad. All of them. Wow. So let's look at the character traits of each individual in and out of the relationship, because a victim can show up in a way that is problematic.
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So how do we really discern why is one person behaving a certain way? Is it because they're a trauma victim?
Mm-hmm.
Who has more power? And now, if a child is idealizing one parent over another, is it because they have actually experienced this abuse and they're afraid of that person?
Mm.
Or is it because they've been coerced
Mm.
to actually align with that person? Now we know that. How do we help it?
Yeah, exactly.
Because you can't coerce a child to feel differently. It's not safe for them to
Yeah.
leave the other person. And that's a whole nother dynamic. And that could be a second podcast episode if you want.
Yes, yes.
Because there's a lot there, but it's about my healing program it's coercive control, like healing for protective parents.
Right.
Is how do we know what this abuser is capable of, and now how do I actively engage in fortifying attachment?
Yeah.
So that when this abuser is actively, intentionally, willfully engaged in fracturing it, every time my child goes with them, they're hearing horrible things about me. They're saying, I took all the money. My boyfriend is an abuser, whatever it is.
Yeah.
How do I, when they come home, reignite attachment so that they are always fortified in who their secure parent is, which is extremely challenging when a child's calling you names, when a child's saying they don't want to be with you, when a child's saying, Dad lets me stay on video games till 2 a.m. Why won't you let me stay on video games till 2 a.m.? It's a different kind of parenting.
Yeah.
Right.
It's an entirely different kind of parenting.
And so what is a practical sort of takeaway that parents can use in those situations? I hear a lot of my clients who talk about those transition days and how difficult they are, right? Where there's such different parenting styles. Maybe there's one parent who is practicing that coercive control. The kids come home and they have so many feelings and they just are not themselves. What is something that like a parent can do like actively to help sort of bring them back?
So for younger children, I have this children's book I just published, Every Moment of Every Day. And it's a story about a little girl and her mom and a little boy and his mom. And when children are coming home dysregulated and having challenges with transition or don't want to go, it's meant for anybody divorcing where a kid is kind of like, Mommy, I just want to stay with you. It's written for protective mothers right now. I mean, those are my primary clients. 35% of abuse. Women suffer violence 35% of the time. We know this, right? Like that's the statistic worldwide. If 35% of women are suffering violence in their lifetime, how many are suffering non-physical violence? Probably closer to 70. How many children are living in these homes? 94% of violence occurs by men. So when men start saying this to me, I say, please think about breast cancer, because you certainly don't have a problem wearing a pink shirt on the day we're doing advocacy for breast cancer. So anyway, the book is outlined to help protective parents meet their children where they are. So a child comes home dysregulated, and part of what we need to do is offer them with like guiding them towards having some safe space. Sometimes they want to listen to music. We know that things that are rhythmic, things that are repetitive, and things that are relational are extremely helpful, particularly for younger children. So I have a little one, every time he comes home, he does not say a word. He's 12. He does not say a word to his mom about the visit. The expectation is they will not talk about it unless he brings it up.
Okay.
It's Taco Thursday night when he comes home. He always has tacos waiting for him. And he immediately goes upstairs and takes a shower. That's how he regulates himself.
Amazing.
And then he comes home, comes downstairs, tacos are ready.
Yeah.
I have a little one. Every time she comes home, right now this is working. It may not work long term, but every time she comes home, there's a trampoline in their house. They have one of those mini trampolines. And her child just immediately goes over to the trampoline and starts bouncing. And mom turns on the favorite music in the kitchen and stays in the kitchen away from the child so that the child actually can begin to regulate herself. This is called somatic healing.
Yeah, I love this.
It's like really understanding in your body what you're feeling. Because sometimes, as you know, protective parents are sending their children to the other parent's home when the child doesn't want to go.
Yeah.
And what I like is that it's very hands-off approach, because I think that there is this need for the protective parent to just
just come in and wrap your arms around that kid and just hold them tight. But this is like giving them the tools to do it when you're not there.
Yeah.
Which is so key.
Well, and not there, and setting them up for success in adulthood, right? Because we do need to be teaching our children. Typically, you're using your parents to self-regulate when you're a child, but you're meant to be learning how to do it yourself. And so I love that. Now, is that something that you have suggested to these clients, or the kids are kind of naturally falling into it and then you're like, yes, stick with that? Like, is it child-led or is it therapist-led?
No, well, I mean, I would say that we want to gauge our children. Some children love to dance.
Yeah.
Some children love to just, so what are our trauma responses, right? So these kids are coming home sometimes in fight mode.
Yeah.
How do we help them regulate? Maybe it's a punching bag downstairs, right?
Yeah.
So I have several young people who have punching bags downstairs in their basement, and that's where they go, right? Maybe it's hitting baseballs, right? How do you let out your fight response? Some children, it's disassociation. So in the book, I talk about, let's make a pillow tent and hide. Right? So they just get into a pillow, they get into a pillow tent on the couch and they hide, right? Like, so figuring out every child's different, right? And how do we figure out what that is? And also knowing it's changeable.
Right.
What works today may not work tomorrow.
More than likely not. Yeah. Yeah. Kids are always changing and growing. We need to, change with them.
I also think you have to give them a little bit of a break, because the behavioral expectations that you might expect of your kids when they're not in that transition, dysregulated state, you have to hold them to a different standard on those days, right? So they might have those outbursts. They might have said to clients, like, there might be big feelings. Yes, they might, they might kick a wall or something that comes out, but try and understand where it's coming from and not get offended or not, punish them because they acted out. Like, these are children who don't know. Their brains aren't developed enough to handle the emotions that they're dealing with.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like you can take that. So if your child comes home and starts punching and kicking the wall, well, maybe they need a punching bag.
Right.
Lean
but don't
into
punish them.
No, exactly.
And shame them because of their behavior. Because I've, even some of my clients, they said that it's like their kids are in like a state that they don't recognize. And then they come out of it and they feel badly. They feel badly about how they behaved when they came home. So I think it's recognizing it and anticipating it. Be ready for it. Like I say to my clients, my transition days, especially in the early days of parenting, co-parenting, are going to be tough. So, brace for impact is what I say, because you just don't know what's going to come out when they come home.
Well, and as mediators, I think you and I both do this with our clients, which is maybe your child needs less transition days. Maybe we can, create a parenting plan that there is less turnover. So they are spending longer, in the same stroke,
which has its pros and cons too. And
And something really important you said, Amanda, is, and everything you're saying is important, but I think it's just important to highlight that we have to parent from a shame reduction perspective.
Yeah.
And so when our children are misbehaving, they're doing things that we didn't expect, they are not the same children. These children are suffering broken brain. They had a broken leg, you treat them differently.
Yeah.
They have broken brain. The abuser, every time the abuser is spending time conditioning them to feel a certain way, it's an unsafe way. They're living in the bottom part of their brain.
Yeah.
And that part of their brain is having trouble functioning. So how do we meet them at that lack of functioning versus shame or correct them? Now is not the time to correct them.
Yeah.
Now is the time to support them, as you were saying, Alex, I think leaning into this idea of a punching bag, right? Or even just leaving the room and saying, Mom's going to be downstairs punching the punching bag. And let them, if they're going to kick, they're going to kick. And now people say, well, what are you talking about? Like, my kid's kicking the wall. Like, I have to stop. No, okay. You and your child will repair that wall next week.
Right.
Together.
Yeah.
Right? If you didn't shame them.
Yeah.
But if you shamed them, oh man, it's going to be really hard for them to take responsibility and to feel collaborative in the process. And so the most important thing, there's so many more important things, but I think I always say, if your child knows you get it, you understand why they're behaving the way they are. I get it. Don't worry. I know exactly where you heard that. I'm really sorry you heard that. That's unfortunate that you heard that. Versus saying, why would you say that?
Mm-hmm.
How come you called me that?
Yeah.
Like, no, like recognize there's a programmer
Yeah,
at the
exactly.
other
Yeah.
place.
Yeah.
And what do
This is
parents?
happening.
What
Well-
do parents say to their kids when they say something like that that has come straight from the other parent? That is something that is meant to break that attachment. What is the answer? What does the parent say?
Yeah, just validate.
Again,
Yeah. I think you just
I'm
validate.
really sorry you heard that.
Yeah.
That's not true.
Yeah.
So, you stole all the family money and, you left us for your boyfriend. You know what, sweetheart? I'm really sorry you heard that. It's not true.
Mm.
Yeah.
Now, here's something very powerful and another very important thing. And again, clinically speaking, what we know is that, and you know this from all the work you do, that, a narcissist gets fed when we over-explain.
Mm-hmm.
They love it.
Mm-hmm.
Like it actually feeds their ego.
Yep.
And what is the abuser trying to train your child to do?
Yeah.
To get fed by you. And think about it as a connection to the abuser. If you feed the child when the child calls you a horrible name and you're like, why would you say that? I can't believe you called me that horrible name. Or, how dare you do that, right? You're feeding the shame. You're igniting the shame. You're feeding that trait that the abuser is hoping, not consciously, to ignite.
Yeah.
How do you cut that off? Well, you don't over explain, for God's sake. Stop giving the children the power.
Mm-hmm.
You have the power.
Yeah. And I think it's so natural for parents to want to not even over explain, but like to teach, right? As parents, we want to prepare our kids to be independent, fully functioning members of society. But it's in that we inadvertently do the shaming, I think.
Sure.
Or we try,
Sure.
I guess we try and fix. This is what I'm working on in my own parenting. And I'm married, happily married. Everything is fine in that regard. But I want to stop the pain. I want to make it better. If they're in pain, if they're hurt physically, mentally, what have you, I want to stop them from hurting. And so I think if you take that same kind of metric, now you've got a parent who's maybe only got the kids half the time. That's half the opportunities to teach them everything that they need to learn, half the opportunities to take away their pain and make them feel loved and whole and all of these things. And so it's almost like you might want to double down because you have this limited time
to give them 100% of what they need and 50% of the time.
Exactly.
Yeah.
If you take away their pain, how do they ever gain confidence in dealing with pain?
Well, and this is why I'm working on it.
But I think there's also,
I know that. Rationally, intellectually, I know it. Emotionally, I just want to hug them and love them. But we have
protect
to
a parent, right?
Exactly. And I think what I'm hearing really is, and I hear this every week from my own therapist, is it's not about you. Right? So if you take yourself out of the equation, take your ego out of the equation, take your own discomfort, your own attachment from your own childhood and all of those wounds, and you don't make it about yourself, but rather, okay, what does my child need in this moment? And that might be very hard for, I would think, the majority of people.
But I think there's also a difference between the type of pain that, I could say like normal children deal with, right? With social issues and, they have a healthy family dynamic versus the type of pain that a child who has that's
coming from the parent.
Yeah, an unsafe parent who is actively, trying to, manipulate them.
Yeah.
And that is pain that they should never have to deal with alone.
Well, except that if we don't allow them to feel that pain, then we, and I don't call it this, but then we are participating in the gaslighting.
Yeah.
And so I call it disintegrated intuition. So going back to the book, like, what does your body feel? And if I keep telling you that it's not that bad, or you're still in the relationship with the abuser and you're like, oh, dad's just in a bad mood, or he's just late again, or it was just an argument. I know you heard him call me some horrible names, but he didn't mean it. We are disintegrating what their body is telling them. And then we wonder why they're so easily indoctrinated.
Yeah.
And so all children, as you know, need to feel pain and they need to feel that discomfort and know how to navigate that in a very healthy way. It creates a competence, not confidence. It creates a competency in dealing with life circumstances. And I think, what mother ever expected that her children would, I don't know, be living, and not have any food in the refrigerator when they went to visit their dad. And so what she does is she packs up some food so that when they go to dad's house, like they have food. Okay. But now she's rescuing, and I'm not suggesting a mother doesn't do this for a young child, but as children age, what can they, dad didn't have food again. Oh my God, sweetheart, let's get you DoorDash or whatever. But in the meantime, let the child feel the pain. Yeah. And that's like a really silly example, because I think there's so many more like really, really harmful ones, right? Like the child actually is afraid to, I don't know, go to bed without a parent, like maybe reading them a bedtime story. They're used to that. That's not happening, right? But letting the child sadly sit in that like despair and being able to relay that to the protective parent continues to give them discernment. Right. Things get murky when we don't give them discernment. And then we wonder again why they're so easily indoctrinated.
Can we leave on maybe a hopeful note of like, what can people early on in relationships look for, maybe? Like how to not get so far down, 20 years in a marriage, right? Until you started to realize, like, how do we spot and be a bit more discerning? Because I know there's a lot of, in the playbook, confusion and manipulation, like really early on, it starts right away. So what are some really obvious ones? Maybe.
I would say that when someone uses, mockery.
Yeah.
Mockery is an easy one, right? Because if somebody mocks you, that actually is them having power over you. And so, I mean, always know that a pattern is one more than one. If you ask someone not to call you a certain name and they call you that name again, that's a pattern to coerce you and to have power over you. Is the relationship based on equality? And I'm not talking finances, because if you're making more, then you put in your percentage. Yep. People think that means like just straight up equal. Like, no. Yeah. Like what's your asset level and what's theirs? And if you've shared a vulnerability and somebody has brought that up, but for people who are parenting, I want you to sit back and ask yourself, are you being diminished as a co-parent? Because one of the things that I think is people don't realize is that when you're in a partnership with an abuser, that abuser has started day one. Yeah. The moment you held that baby in your arms, they realized the love you have for that baby, they could never, ever have. That unconditional love. And it became an immediate threat. Yeah. And whether they act threatened by the baby and say, you don't spend time with me, or why are you so busy? Or they actually replace you with the baby. Yeah. That is a huge red flag. Now, I have moms who, frankly, I'm coaching. I do custody, and I'm coaching them to stay because staying means their children are safer. Yeah. Wow. This is the sad part. We know that 1/5 of women are murdered within 2 days of getting a restraining order. Out of 231 women researched, 1/5. So how do we navigate? There's no judgment if you stay, there's no judgment if you leave, but I can say, and that's for me the most important part. You said, let's leave on a positive note. Yeah. Protective parents have so much influence. If you are actively, and I'm not talking about just showing up as a parent, the wonderful parent you already are. If you are actively working on enhancing, fortifying, reigniting attachment, then that is going to be the golden ticket. Because the abuser is actively working on fracturing it. And if you don't see it, listen, my daughter and son, my daughter told me when she was 17, an incident happened. I said, when did this start? She said, Mom, when I was in 3rd grade. Wow. I'm like, what? She was 9. She remembers the day and the hour that he was already doing it, but that he actively started engaging in a narrative that I was unstable, untrustworthy, that I needed my medication, all of those things. And so that was 8 years of her being coerced into that narrative. And I wondered why she couldn't trust me. Wow. So if I had seen it, if someone had said to me, there's counter-parenting going on here, and I want you to elevate yourself in that relationship. I want you to really fortify attachment as much as possible. Stop worrying about correcting so much. Stop. Correction only happens when we can get to cognitive processing. A child living in dysregulated states is in the bottom part of their brain.
Yeah, they're never there.
They're not getting corrected.
No.
Stop. Work on attachment.
And you have to assume that I love the term counter-parenting.
Yeah.
I use it quite often.
Yeah.
You have to assume, even if you haven't seen it yourself, that it's happening. You have to assume that it's happening.
If you don't assume it, you've missed.
Yeah.
You've missed there's a steam train
Yeah.
coming right for you.
Yeah.
And sadly, so many moms have been on the tracks when that train came.
Yeah.
And they're blindsided.
And
Like,
I
I
was
didn't
one of them.
know.
Yeah.
And how did that happen under my roof? Or not even, like, how did I not see that? And assume it is happening. We know it's happening. So, work, like you said, work on your relationship with the kids. And I think so many people in these situations are so focused on what's happening at the other house. Let's just say it's a 2-household situation. What's happening there when they can't really control it. And the systems aren't in place to help you, navigate that. So you have to focus on your relationship with your kids and what's happening in your own home.
100%.
Yeah. Well, thank you.
Dr. C, what?
We could talk for hours. And you have to come back.
You have to come back.
Because there's just so many topics that we want to explore further. But thank you so much for your time and your expertise and helping all of these, these women.
And the resources, the children's book, get these resources, help yourself, inform yourself, because it's so, so important. Your Dr. C on Instagram, you have so many incredible nuggets and factoids. So follow her, get the info. Thank you for sharing your time and your wisdom with us. We really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me on.
This episode was written and created by Alex Howard and Amanda Silver, produced, edited, and engineered by RTF Productions. Make sure to rate and review our show if you loved it, and give us a follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you stream your podcast to stay up to date on all upcoming episodes. Thanks for listening, and go easy on us. We're not your ex.